So let's start with the Prarthana. By the Guru's grace and the will of Sri Krishna, we have all assembled for this Gita Satsang. May we have their guidance to be able to learn and adopt the things which will help us to grow spiritually. Let us chant the shlokas. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnaya Vasudevaya Haraye Paramatmane Pranatakleshanashaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Namostu te Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullaravindaaya Tapatra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Ramanujadaya Patram Jnana Vairagya Bhushanam Srimad Venkatanathāryam Vande Vedanta Deshikam Yo Nityamachyutapadambuja Yukma Rukma Vyamohatastaditarani Trinaya Mene Asmadguror Bhagavatosya Dayaika Sindho Ramanujasya Charanam Sharanam Prapadye. So offering prayers at the lotus feet of the Acharyas, let us start our topic for today. So we've been studying the third chapter, and in the last satsang we had stopped at the 26th shloka. So today we will continue from shloka number 27. Krishna is continuing to advise Arjuna. So in the 27th shloka he says, Prakrite kriya karmani gunai karmani sarvashah ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. All activities are carried out by the three modes of material nature. But in ignorance, the soul, deluded by false identification with the body, thinks of itself as the doer. So in this shloka, Krishna is explaining about what is the state of the ignorant person, the person who is not having Atma Jnana. So actually, he says that according to Prakriti, all activities are carried out. And when we say Prakriti, we mean by saying the three modes of material nature, he is referring to the gunas, the Sattva Guna, the Rajo Guna, and the Tamo Guna. But because this person does not realize that the Atma is different from the body and identifies that sense of I with the body, so this person thinks that he is doing all the actions. So what is that explanation for this? So here Krishna is talking about the ordinary samsari, the person who is caught up in samsara, the person who is not having any kind of an understanding of what is his true nature. So such a samsari, such a person thinks, I am doing this, I am doing that. And he claims doership. He thinks that he is the doer. But in reality, Krishna is saying, how do actions happen? What is the basic factor which motivates action? All actions are happening due to the influence of the Sattva Guna, the Rajo Guna, and the Tamo Gunas. Now one may think that for something to be able to motivate an action, it should be something which has jnana. Now these gunas don't have jnana, isn't it? They are just gunas. They don't have any knowledge factor. There is no extra faculty available to the gunas. So they don't have jnana. How can they then drive our actions? How can they be the motivator of the action? So if we look one step deeper, it appears as if all actions are because of Sattva Rajo Tamo Guna, but actually it is the Lord who is the motivator. Now, how can we understand this? Here the Acharyas give the example of a chariot. So in a chariot, we have the horse. Now the horse is the one who is moving, right? So the horse is the performer of the action. The horse appears to be controlled by the reins. So if the reins are pulled in one way, the horse moves a particular direction. If they are held loosely, the horse behaves in a particular manner. If the reins are held, they are tightened, the horse behaves in a different manner. So the reins are controlling the horse. But do the reins themselves have the ability to control the horse? No. The reins are held in the hands of the charioteer, the person who is driving that horse, or person who is driving the chariot, isn't it? So similarly, when we take any human being who is performing some actions, then you should equate this human being to the horse in the chariot. So just like the horse is the one who is running, the human being is the one who is performing the actions. Now, it appears as if the gunas, the sattva, raja and tamo gunas, are the ones who are making that horse to move. Just like the reins are controlling the movement of the horse, the gunas play a role in determining the actions of the human beings, the behavior of the human beings. But is it only the gunas, just like the reins themselves have no ability to control, but it is the person sitting in the chariot, the charioteer, who is driving the horse? So also it is the Lord, the Paramatma sitting within every Jivatma, who is the driver of all the actions. So understanding this is something that is not very easy, or it is not accessible for people who don't have the ability to separate between the body and the Atma. So if we can understand that it is the Lord who is controlling us, how? Through the gunas, then we will come to a stage where we understand that it is not I who am performing this action. But whatever action I do, whatever activity I do, right now I am thinking that I am the one who is doing it. Then Krishna is saying in the shloka, it is not you, it is the gunas which are driving you. But even further, when we go, we understand that it is not just the gunas, but it is the Lord who is using these gunas, and by that he is making us do certain actions. So if we understand this, we immediately come to know that it is not we who are doing, but it is the Lord who is doing. So understanding this will help to reduce our attachment to whatever actions we are doing. Right now, we are claiming doership of all the actions. I did like this. I achieved that. Because of my work, this happened. So we are thinking like that and we are behaving like that. But if we understand that it is actually the Lord seated within us who is motivating all these actions, then whatever has to be done, we will not be attached to our action. We will realize it is the Lord who is leading us. It is the Lord who is getting it done through us. So then we will be able to have a detached spirit. Here the commentators give the example of somebody who is, how a person who has some attachment behaves versus other people. Now, if there was a game, let us say a cricket match or a football match or something, which took place. Now, in the next day in the newspaper or on the online news portals, there will be news reports which appear about that game. And depending on how that writer of the news has his views, he will either praise some player or he may criticize a particular player, right? So when that news report of the game is published, there are lots of people who are reading it. Now, somebody who is only reading it as news has no personal stake in that matter. Now, such a person, what happens to him? He does not get emotionally affected by that report, whether it is critical of somebody, whether it is praising somebody. He is least bothered. He is just looking at it as a news. So he is not at all attached to that. But suppose the sportsman about whom that reporter has written the news, that person is reading that news. Now what happens to him? If he has been praised, he feels happy. If he has been criticized, he feels unhappy, right? So why is this happening? The people who are reading it just like readers have nothing at stake. They feel unconnected with that. They are just reading it. But the sportsman has performed those particular actions and he is thinking that he is the one who did that. So he gets affected by whatever news report comes. So this example is given to explain to us how when there is attachment, we feel very much affected by whatever is happening or what people are saying about that action. But if there is no attachment, then we are able to remain unaffected by whatever is happening. Again, the Acharyas give the example. Now we are saying that it is the Lord who is doing everything. And many times we think that it is we who are doing, right? So we will continue to do with our own limited knowledge and everything, and we struggle and struggle, and we find that maybe we are not succeeding. So here the example is told of Gajendra, the elephant. Now Gajendra was caught in the jaws of the crocodile. He tried everything possible. The fight went on for 1,000 years. Gajendra did everything that he could, trying to free himself. Until he was trying by himself, the Lord did not appear in the picture. Those actions of Gajendra were also motivated by the Lord from within. But Gajendra did not have awareness of that. He thought he is the one who is fighting that crocodile. Now, at one point of time, he realized that by whatever he is doing, nothing is happening. Now, there is no other go for him except to let go. He has no other option now. So then he says, I'm surrendering to you. And according to Gajendra, at that point, he says, oh Lord, you take care. Now I'm giving up. All along, actually, what was the thing? The Lord himself within Gajendra was doing everything. But until this Gajendra accepted that and he said that I am now surrendering and doing Sharanagati to the Lord, there was no actual other action from the Lord's side. He didn't come. Till Gajendra thought, I will fend for myself, the Lord didn't come, didn't appear there. But the minute Gajendra accepted that he has nothing to do in this whole thing, then it was that the Lord came. So also when we are doing our actions, we are not having awareness that it is the Lord within us who is motivating. So we are claiming doership and thinking, I did like this, I did like that. We feel happy when what we do goes right. We feel sad when something goes wrong. And we are affected by what other people say when about our efforts, right? But if we have to understand that it is actually the Lord only who is motivating us, then there is nothing for me called mine to hold on to. Then I will realize that it is the Lord who is doing everything. So when I say that I think I am doing, right? Who is actually doing? In reality, we said for anything to be done, there has to be that jnana component. Now, is it the Sharira which has the jnana, the body which has the jnana? No, it is the Atma which is having the jnana. So, in reality, when we say I am doing, I means the Atma. But I don't realize that, isn't it? Because I have not understood the true Swarupa of the Atma. So, that real Swarupa of the Atma is masked by this Ahankara. And that is why when we say I am doing, we think I, this body, is doing. So when we are doing in this manner, right, thinking that I am doing and not realizing it is the Lord who is the motivator of all the actions, then whatever actions we are performing, they are just karma. They are only actions. They are not karma yoga. So what is it that Krishna wants Arjuna to do? What is it that Krishna wants everybody who is following Arjuna to do? Just performing an action will not contribute in any way to reducing the Rajotamo gunas. If Rajasic Tamasic qualities have to become less, if Sattva guna has to increase, right, then whatever karma you are doing has to be done as karma yoga. It has to be done, the actions have to be done with the awareness that it is the Lord who is motivating the actions from within us. So if we do our actions like this, with this kind of a spirit, with detachment, without attachment, without claiming doership, when we do our actions like this, that karma yoga that we perform will reduce our rajotamo gunas. That karma yoga will reduce our ahankara. The minute this ahankara starts getting lessened, we start getting clarity to understand that actually what is the Atma Swarupa. And as a person proceeds along this path, they will finally reach moksha. That is why it is told that Karma Yoga also will lead you ahead on the path towards liberation. So we have to perform not just karma, but Karma Yoga. Now here one thing the Acharyas caution us that we are saying that Atma is the Karta. I said, right? It is the Atma who is the one who is doing. Atma is having the jnana. This body is not having that. So this body is only an instrument. Now, when we say Atma is Karta, or we say Lord is motivating, there are people who can misuse this information, isn't it? So I walk up to somebody, I slap them, and then I say, the Lord within motivated me to slap that person. Or I go and I do some other action, and I say, I didn't do it, it is the Atma within which did. We cannot use this fact of the Lord being motivator to escape from doing actions. Or we cannot use it as a way to shift the blame of our wrong deeds onto somebody else. Because although it is the Atma who is the primary Karta, the Atma alone is not able to perform the action, isn't it? The Atma requires the body, requires the three gunas, and the Lord's will. And only then the action will take place. Just by the will of the Atma, the action will not take place. Just by the Lord's will, the action will not take place. The Deha, the Sharira, and the Trigunas, they also have to be present in association, and only then actions will take place. So if we understand this correctly, and with this realization, we perform our actions, then the actions become not just karma, but they are karma yoga. So Krishna is telling all this to Arjuna to tell him that what should be Arjuna's spirit when he is fighting in this yuddha. Arjuna should fight. Arjuna should do whatever is his duty to protect his people, but without the idea that I am fighting, I am protecting them. Instead, he should realize that it is the Lord's sankalpa. By the Lord's sankalpa, I am doing all these things. And it is by the Lord's sankalpa only that the fight will take place, the war will take place, the yuddha will go on, the protection of the good people will happen. So Krishna is trying to teach these things to Arjuna in this shloka. Then he continues further to explain little more about this point. So in the 28th shloka, he's telling Arjuna, Tattva vittu mahabaho gunakarma vibhagayoho guna guneshu vartanta iti matvana sajjate. O mighty armed Arjuna, O Mahabahu, illumined persons. Illumined persons means wise persons, people who have the jyoti of jnana in them. They distinguish the soul as distinct from the gunas and karmas. So they are able to understand that the Atma is different from guna and that is different from the karma. They perceive, they are able to see that it is only the gunas in the shape of the senses, the mind and others that move among the gunas in the shape of the objects of perception, and thus they do not get entangled in them. So the jnani, the wise person, such a person who has knowledge of the tattva, of the real truth, such jnanis realize that gunas are separate from the actions. Gunas motivate the actions. And that below the gunas, the primary motivator is the Lord also. So such people who have understood this tattva, they give up attachment to their actions. And in fact, they are able to often rise above the gunas to perform actions in a particular manner. So here the Acharyas give the example of how Lord Rama was sent to Vanvasa. So we all know of that episode. Dasharath Raja wanted to crown Lord Rama as the Raja. So everything was announced. All the people of Ayodhya were very happy. Everybody was very eager to see Rama as the Raja. And even Kaikeyi, who had a lot of affection for Rama, probably more than she had for Bharata, was also very enthusiastic about the whole idea. At that time, her maid servant Manthara came and poisoned her mind and made her ask for those two boons from Dasharatha, isn't it? So there had been a previous, many years ago, there had been a yuddha where Dasharatha had gone on behalf of the Devas to fight against the Asuras. And in that yuddha, Kaikeyi had been instrumental in saving Dasharatha and nursing him back to good health. So that time, out of affection, Dasharatha had promised 2 boons to Kaikeyi. So she said, I don't want anything right now. I will ask you later whenever the time comes. So remembering that, Manthara told Kaikeyi, now you ask for those 2 boons. And what did Kaikeyi ask? She said, first boon, she wanted her son Bharata to be made the king of Ayodhya. And she wanted Rama to be sent to Vanavasa for 14 years. Right? So if we look now, when she made these demands, Dasharatha was totally, devastated. He had absolutely no idea of going back on his word because he always is Satyavakya. He says, whatever I say, never going back on the word. That is not only Dasharatha's vow, but it is the credo of their entire Vamsha. The Ikshvaku Vamsha has been based on that, isn't it? They say, Raghukula Reet Chali Ai, Pran Jaye Par Vachan Na Jaye. So in that Raghukula, always it was their motto and everybody lived up to that, that even if their prana goes, it is fine, but they will not go back on their promise, not go back on their word. So Dasharatha was, there's no way Dasharatha would not give the boons. He kept begging Kaikeyi that you please ask for something else, but she didn't want to go back on her boons. So ultimately the result was that Rama went to Vanavasa and Kaikeyi made it such that Bharata had to become king. Now, when Bharata came back, he was shocked to hear all this. Correct. So, if you look at this entire episode, now Dasharatha performed certain actions, Kaikeyi performed certain actions. So, Dasharatha, out of the Rajoguna, had promised those boons to Kaikeyi. Kaikeyi, out of her Tamoguna, wanted something good for Bharata and wanted bad for Rama. So all these actions, then Dasharatha saying that I will not go back on my word, that again, all these things are a result of their gunas. If you look at that entire episode, at that point of time, the Rajogutamo gunas were predominant in both Dasharatha and Kaikeyi. We may think that, refusing to go back on the word, isn't it being honest and truthful? That is Sattva Guna. Yes, it is Sattva Guna, but when it comes to choosing between keeping your word and doing what is good for the Lord, then I think we can understand that doing what is right by the Lord takes precedence over your vow of honesty, isn't it? So here, in this case, both Dasharatha and Kaikeyi were motivated by their Rajotamo gunas. And that is why they behaved in that particular manner. So how we behave at a particular time depends on that particular situation, and how we respond to a situation depends on that guna which is predominant in us at that point of time. Many times we have noticed in ourselves that at some times we are very fresh and alert and we want to, listen to some pravachan, or we want to spend time in chanting. There are other times when we are just feeling restless and we want to keep doing some action and we are not ready to sit and meditate and chant and all that. And there are other times when we would rather, be lost in some movie or in some other activity. And we don't want to even think of God or chant his name. So what is happening here? It is a manifestation of what guna is predominant in us. When we have more sattva guna, we are more likely to involve in bhakti. When we have more rajoguna, we are going to be restless and, simply running around doing a lot of things. And when we are in tamoguna, we are lazy and inert and we don't want to go anywhere close to anything which is having sattvic quality. So understanding this link between the gunas and our actions is very important to give up our attachment to those actions. When we understand that our actions are motivated by the gunas which are predominant at that particular time, then we will be able to realize that yes, if I am behaving like this, it is because of this guna. And it is not correct for me to be in Rajotamo guna mode. I should try to switch over to Sattva guna mode. And then in that Sattva guna mode, it is easier for us to remember this point that we have heard in the satsang, that it is the Lord who is the motivator. I am not the doer. Right? So that is why we must understand this link between the gunas and the actions. Then continuing to conclude this particular, thought pattern of thoughts about how the wise person is, and what is the difference between the wise person and ignorant person when it comes to the actions that they perform. So this is the 29th shloka. To give this particular thought completion, Krishna speaks in the 29th shloka. Here he says, Prakrite guna sammudhaha sajjante guna karmasu tan akritsna vido mandan kritsna vinna vichalayet. Those who are deluded by the operation of the gunas become attached to the results of their actions. But the wise who understand these truths should not unsettle such ignorant people who know very little. So, in the first part, Krishna is telling, again, he is summarizing that people who don't have jnana, people who are whose understanding is masked by ahankara, they are deluded. They get confused by the way the gunas are making them behave. Such people, they are attached to the result of their action. So they are doing the action because they want a particular outcome. So they are having their rajasic and tamasic gunas which are there. Those are making them do particular actions. And those gunas only are making them say that, okay, I want this to happen because of my actions. But what is the difference between these people and the wise people? The wise people understand the truth. What truth? That it is the gunas which are making me act like this and like that, but I should not give in to that. The actual person who is motivating the action sitting within is the Lord. So they understand this truth and they don't have attachment to their actions. They are detached from their actions. Now, just because these wise people know it, that doesn't mean that they should tell all this to the unwise person, to the ignorant person. Why? Because ignorant people don't know everything. They are not able to understand everything. And they will get unsettled and they will be neither here nor there if we give them such information. So, deluded persons are attached to their actions. Wise people have detachment. So just because this wise person knows, should he go around telling the ignorant person that, see, actually it is the Lord who is doing, you are not doing, you don't have any attachment to your action, you don't do like this, there is no point, why should you do action? You don't have the need to do any action, you give up doing all actions, you just think of the Lord, you meditate on the Lord. Should they tell like that? Should they teach Jnana Yoga to the inferior people? No, because the inferior people are not yet having the ability, they have not developed the capacity to understand this concept. So what they will do, they will take half of what these people told. So the natural tendency of human beings is to be lazy and to be inert and not want to do anything, right? We have to fight against that and do sadhana. So if a person comes and tells you, you are actually not the doer of the action, you need not do anything, you just have to meditate on the Lord. So they will take that part about you don't have to do action. But because their rajasic, tamasic qualities are more and they have not developed sattva guna, they will not be able to do jnana yoga either. They will not be able to do dhyana and meditation either, right? So what will happen? They are definitely going to lose track. They will be put on the wrong path. They will not be able to make any kind of spiritual progress. Instead, what should the wise person do? The wise person should teach this ignorant person to do karma yoga. You should teach them how to convert their karma into karma yoga, how to convert their actions from mere actions to becoming an offering to the Lord. And that will help them to gradually develop that capability. Here again, the acharyas tell us that you take the example of the Alvars or so many saints who have been all over our country. So all these Alvars, the great saints of our country, they all had constant experience of the Lord's presence. They could see the Lord. They could uh, experience the Lord. They used to have conversations with the Lord, right? And yet, did they say that, okay, I have all this and I know how to be lost in contemplation of the Lord, so I will teach people how to sit and do dhyana and meditate on the Lord? Did they say that? Definitely not. All the great saints and alvars repeated one thing to everybody. They kept telling that constantly keep thinking of the Lord, constantly chant the Lord's name, constantly keep singing his glories, do Shravanam, Kirtanam, Padasevanam, and do all these actions. Why? Because they wanted to teach us the importance of doing these actions. The alvas or the saints themselves had no need to do karma yoga. They were already in communion with the Lord. right? But why did they tell us that you should do Namasankirtana, that you should do Japa? Why did they tell us that? Why did they expect us to perform actions? Why did they show us by their action that this is the action we should be doing? To teach us that it is important to do chanting. They were all great jnanis. Did they tell everybody that you follow the path of Jnana Yoga? No. They said for this Kali Yuga, the easiest way to attain the Lord is to do Nama Sankirtana. So you keep chanting the Lord's name. Correct? So like this, maybe Arjuna thinks that he is having capacity to do dhyana. He doesn't want to do all this fighting and all this. He wants to go away and do dhyana. But as we said last time, actually he is not capable either. But even if he thinks that he has capability, it is not correct for a person in his position to confuse other people who are going to look up to him. He is seen as a role model. He is seen as an ideal person in the society. All other Kshatriyas are going to follow whatever Arjuna did. So if Arjuna gives up the fight and runs away to the forest and involves in dhyana, then all other Kshatriyas are going to give up their actions. Whether they will definitely not be capable of doing jnana. They cannot reach moksha by that path, but they will definitely give up their karma. And then what will happen? There will only be arajaka everywhere. There will be chaos and anarchy in society. So that is the reason why Krishna is stressing so much time and again to make Arjuna understand that he has to perform karma not for his sake alone, but also because there are other people in society who are looking up to him for guidance, and it is his responsibility to guide those people in the correct path. So this is what Krishna has been emphasizing to Arjuna. In the next few shlokas, we will go further and we will understand what is the bhava with which karma yoga has to be performed. But for today, let us understand these things that we talked about. That we must realize that whatever actions we are performing are because of gunas. If we learn to step aside from our action and view our actions as a observer with sakshi bhava, with the idea that I am just a witness, right? If we can be a detached observer, we will be able to see how at particular times our rajotamo gunas are taking control over us. So we must understand that our actions depend on our gunas. And if we want to change our behavior, if we want to change our actions, we need to change our gunas. Now, we have to take steps to reduce our rajotamo gunas and increase the sattva gunas. And the easiest way of doing that is to keep thinking of the Lord, to keep singing the glories of the Lord, because he is Shuddha Sattva. So when we think more and more of the Lord, we will start imbibing those sattvic gunas. Then we have to, as we understand this concept of the gunas and the actions, we have to gradually learn to be detached from our actions. Forcibly, we have to tell ourselves that this action is motivated by the Lord. The Lord is getting it done through me. This Sharira, this Atma, I am just a Madhyama. And that will help us to develop detachment when we are doing the actions. And then, although there are times when we may think that we know certain things already, we are at the higher level, we are studying Bhagavad Gita, we are learning about the different paths, different yoga margas, and we are, using the buddhi to go ahead. And yet, it should not mean that we stop doing our daily practices. It does not mean that we should give up our achara, whatever practices we are supposed to do. Why? It may be a simple thing. If it is told that we have to light a lamp and do puja in the morning and in the evening, then can I say that, oh, I am at a much higher level, I am beyond all these things, I am a spiritual person, I don't have to perform religious rites, and it is all in the mind, there is no need for me to do with the body. Maybe it is true that I have moved beyond the phase of just mechanical worship, but I need to perform that worship with the bhava that out of love and gratitude, I am doing it to the Lord. I need to perform it for my own good to increase my sattva guna. Also, equally important, I need to do it because there are others who are watching me. And my children at home, people in society are looking at me and seeing what I'm doing. So I have to perform those actions because I have to set an example for others. I have to motivate others by my action. People never get motivated by what we try to teach them. People get motivated by what we behave in our life. And if I say one thing and I do another thing, then definitely everybody is looking only at what I am doing. and not at what I am saying. And especially children are very sensitive. So we must make sure that we follow the acharas, the practices, whatever is taught in our sampradaya. We have to perform those actions with awareness of what guna in me is predominant at this time. We have to perform them with the awareness that the Lord within is the motivator for this action. We have to perform them thinking that there are others watching me and I want to make sure that people get the right track from me. So with that bhava, we have to perform our actions. So let us pray that Krishna will bless us to understand these things, to remember these things, and to be able to slowly, one at a time, put them into practice day after day in our life. Right? So we have reached the end of our time for today's satsang. Let us offer Kritagnyata now. Let us offer gratitude at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna and Guru for inspiring us to start and join this satsang. And let us pray for their blessings and grace to always be on us. Thank you everybody for attending. I hope you are able to follow whatever we are talking about. The acharyas have made it very clear for us by giving us examples, by repeating certain things. And we should pray that it takes us all forward in such a way that we are able to, make progress in our Adhyatmic journey. Thank you everybody for attending, and we will meet again next Thursday. Namaskar.